Cleopatra VII was Egypt's most famous daughter and the country's last ruler who will still be in power, a woman who lives on in movies, paintings, and books. William Shakespeare wrote one of his best tragedies about a mysterious heroine. Her story has been told over and over again throughout history. It is full of romance, love, wealth, and betrayal. But underneath all the gold and glitz is a much darker story of extreme sibling rivalry and hunger for power that would change the course of history. We were taught that Cleopatra's youth, beauty, and sexual appeal made this story possible. But you don't know what an attractive weapon she had. But before we go on, we want to remind you to subscribe to our channel. Also, give this video a big thumbs up. And with that, let's go back to the video. Mark Antony's Greek biographer, Plutarch, said what made her so interesting wasn't so much how she looked, but how she talked and how smart she was. Cleopatra spoke many languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Ethiopian, Troglodytic, Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Median, and Parthian. She learned math, philosophy, and astronomy in school and could hold her own in any political and economic conversation. Cleopatra did everything that her male counterparts did, just like a lot of other strong political women throughout history. Now, let's learn more about her past. Background. Cleopatra VII was born in early 69 BC to the ruling Ptolemaic pharaoh Ptolemy XII and an unknown mother, probably Ptolemy XII's wife Cleopatra VI, Tryphaena, who was also the mother of Cleopatra's older sister, Berenice IV Epiphania. A few months after Cleopatra was born, her mother, Cleopatra Tryphaena, disappears from official records. Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe IV, and her brothers Ptolemy XIII, Theos Philopator, and Ptolemy XIV were born while Ptolemy XII's wife was away. Life and reign. Cleopatra was destined to be the last queen of the Macedonian dynasty, which ruled Egypt from Alexander the Great's death in 323 BC until Rome took it over in 30 BC. Alexander's general Ptolemy started the line. He later became King Ptolemy I Soter of Egypt. Cleopatra was from Macedonia and didn't have much or any Egyptian blood in her, but according to classic scholar Plutarch, she was the only member of her household who took the time to learn Egyptian and, for political reasons, branded herself the new Isis. This made her different from Cleopatra III, an earlier Ptolemaic queen, who was also said she was the goddess Isis in human form. Cleopatra's face on the coin looks more alive than beautiful, with a sensitive mouth, a strong chin, liquid eyes, a wide forehead, and a big nose. When Ptolemy XII died in 52 BC, his young son, named Ptolemy XIII, and his daughter, named Cleopatra VII, took over the throne. There is no proof, but it is likely that they got married soon after their father died. Cleopatra, who was 18 and about 8 years older than her brother, became the most powerful ruler. Evidence shows that the first decree in which Ptolemy's name came before Cleopatra's came out in October of 50 BC. Soon after, Cleopatra had to leave Egypt and go to Syria, where she built an army. In 48 BC, she went back to Egypt's eastern border in Pelusium to fight her brother. The Roman general Pompey was killed by Ptolemy XIII. Relationship with Julius Caesar. When the Roman general Julius Caesar walked into town, Cleopatra knew the only way to get her throne back was to cooperate with him. She also realized that there was no way she could be spotted entering for a meeting with him, so she buried herself in a carpet roll and snuck inside to meet Caesar, who greeted her warmly. They soon became friends and fell in love. She became Caesar's mistress, and the two of them had a son named Ptolemy Caesar, who was also called Little Caesar by his parents. At least once, Cleopatra went to Rome on a state visit with her husband, brother, and son. Following Ptolemy XII's defeat by Caesar and his Roman troops, Cleopatra regained control with Ptolemy XIV as her new brother and husband, whose death she, supposedly, poisoned in order to set up her son, Little Caesar. Caesar needed 2 years to put out the last of the Pompeians' protests. As soon as he got back to Rome in 46 BC, he held a 4-day triumph to honor his victory over a foreign enemy. Cleopatra stayed in Caesar's private villa beyond the Tiber River. She may have been there when a golden statue of herself was put up in the temple of Venus Genetrix, the ancestor of the Julian family. which Caesar was a member of. Cleopatra was in Rome in 44 BC when Caesar was killed. Cleopatra was in danger when Caesar was killed, so she left immediately. She lived in her own palace with her son Caesarion on the other side of the Tiber River. It's likely that she didn't live there full time, but that she went there often from Egypt. Cleopatra was not liked by many people in the city that no longer had kings because she insisted on being called a queen. Cleopatra and Mark Antony, another love story. Antony was thought to be the most powerful Roman after Caesar's death, so Cleopatra chose him as her partner to have heirs. As a triumvir, Antony also had a lot of power to give back to Cleopatra's lands that used to belong to the Ptolemies but were now in Roman hands. She went to Tarsus in Asia Minor with lots of gifts. She had put off leaving to make Antony wait even longer. She sailed up the Cydnus River in a barge while dressed as the new Isis and went into the city. Antony, who thought he was like the god Dionysus, was completely taken in. Antony went back to Alexandria and forgot about his wife Fulvia, who was in Italy trying to protect her husband's interest from the growing threat of young Octavian. He treated Cleopatra not as a protected sovereign, but as an independent monarch. In Alexandria, Cleopatra and Antony started a group called the Inimitable Livers, whose members lived what some historians say was a life of drunkenness and foolishness, and what others say was a life devoted to the cult of the mysterious god Dionysus. Antony was forced to prove his loyalty to Octavian when Fulvia got sick and died. He did this by getting married to Octavian's half-sister Octavia. Under Cleopatra's rule, Egypt got richer, and in 37 BC, Antony met with Cleopatra again to get money for his long-delayed military campaign against the kingdom of Parthia. In exchange, he agreed to give back a lot of Egypt's eastern empire, including Cyprus, Crete, Cyrenia, Jericho, and large parts of Syria and Lebanon. They fell in love again, and Cleopatra gave birth to Ptolemy Philadelphus in 36 BC. After a humiliating loss in Parthia, Antony turned down his wife Octavia's pleas to come back with him and went back to Egypt to be with Cleopatra. Antony is said to have married Cleopatra after he split up with his wife Octavia. They met in Syria. The next year, Ptolemy Philadelphus, their third child, is born in 34 BC. At a public event called the Donations of Alexandria, Antony said that Caesarion, not Octavian, was the rightful heir. He also gave land to each of Caesar and Cleopatra's other children. This led to a war of words between him and Octavian, who was very, very angry. Octavian said that Antony was completely controlled by Cleopatra and would leave Rome and make Egypt the new capital. At the end of 32 BC, the Roman Senate took away all of Antony's titles, and Octavian went to war with Cleopatra. Defeat and death. Cleopatra fought back against Octavian. She led several of Antony's ships into battle, but it was a shame that the Romans were too strong for Antony's army. At the Battle of Actium, which took place on September 2, 31 BC, Octavian's forces beat Antony and Cleopatra's forces by a large margin. Cleopatra's ship left the battle and went back to Egypt. Antony was able to break away quickly and send a few ships after her. Antony heard that Cleopatra had killed herself while Alexandria was under attack by Octavian's army. He fell on his sword and died right as word came that the rumor was not true. In a last act of devotion, he had himself carried to Cleopatra's hideaway, where he died after telling her to make peace with Octavian. On October 12, 30 BC, Cleopatra locked herself in her room with two of her female servants after burying Antony and meeting with the victorious Octavian. It's not clear how she died, but classical writers came to think that she killed herself by letting an asp or Egyptian cobra bite her, which was a sign of divine royalty. Cleopatra's body was buried alongside Antony's because that is what she desired. So, this is today's video. Please let us know your thoughts about this video in our comment section. Also, if you want to see another amazing video like this one, click one on your screen.